Thank you so much for your patience. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm very honored to be here tonight. My name is Ruby Beth Beautycant, and I am on the board of Charis Circle. And Charis Circle is a nonprofit. We are connected to Charis Bookstore, which is the South's oldest feminist bookstore. We are currently in Decatur. We just moved there from Little Five Points, and we're really proud to host a lot of events. If you picked up a book, or if you would like to grab a sheet of our events out in the lobby at the end, you're welcome to do so. We'd love to see you at any of our upcoming events. We partner with Auburn Avenue Research Library a lot, and we also have events in our own space. Thank you so much for coming. I have the honor of introducing two folks who I'm very excited to learn from tonight. So joining us a little bit later will be C.K. Hoffler, who is the CEO of the C.K. Hoffler Firm, an Atlanta-based law firm that specializes in representing plaintiffs in trucking accidents, medical malpractice, wrongful death, civil rights litigation, commercial litigation, employment discrimination, opioid litigation, and global commercial transactions. Ms. Hoffler is licensed in 5 states, including Georgia, Florida, Virginia, D.C., and Pennsylvania. And to date, she has tried and or settled cases totaling over $8 million. As an accomplished attorney, she was previously partner at Edmund Lindsay and Hoffler and a partner at Gary Williams in Florida. And while she was a partner at Gary Williams, she ran the commercial and international litigation practice for Willie Gary for 12 years. She's also a counsel to civil rights icon Reverend Jesse Jackson and has represented him and the Rainbow Push and related organizations for the past 30 years. We'll be very excited to welcome her when she arrives. And I also have the privilege of introducing to you Benjamin Crump, who represents clients in some of the most important and contentious cases of our time, taking a place in legal history with his pursuit of justice. His role in the Trayvon Martin, Martin Lee Anderson boot camp, Janie Liggins, State of Oklahoma versus Daniel Holtzclaw, and Robbie Tolan cases shows a legacy built around the idea that the Constitution applies to everyone at every level of society. Mr. Crump's passion for advocacy has given him the privilege to fight for justice on behalf of the marginalized in our country, a calling to which he remains dedicated. Mr. Crump has broken barriers in several legal organizations, serving as the first African-American president of the Federal Bar Association for the Northern District of Florida, and the first African-American chairman of the Florida State University College of Law Board of Directors. He is a member of the American Bar Association, American Association for Justice, the Florida Justice Association, and many other groups dedicated to law and the pursuit of justice. He is a frequent speaker and author, having been featured on documentaries like NPR's How a Lawyer Got a Nation Talking About Trayvon Martin, and BET's I Am Trayvon Martin, A Family's Fight for Justice. He's received significant recognition for his service in pursuit of civil rights and justice for minorities, including being included on prestigious lists like the National Trial Lawyers Top 100 Lawyers and Ebony Magazine's Power 100 Most Influential African Americans. He previously served as the inaugural board chairman of Florida's Big Bend Fair Housing Center and also served as the general counsel to the Florida State Conference of the NAACP and sat on the boards of the Innocence Project and the Equal Justice Initiative. He was born in Lumberton, North Carolina, is the oldest of 9 siblings and step-siblings. He received his undergraduate law degree from Florida State University. He's a congregation member and serves on the Board of Trustees for the Bethel Missionary Baptist Church. He is married to Dr. Janae Angelique Crump, is the proud father of Brooklyn Zeta Crump, and the guardian of 2 adopted cousins, Marcus and Chancellor. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Crump. And CK.
Good evening. You all please welcome C.K. Hoffler, who just walked in the building. She, a great lawyer, a great friend, and just a great human being who braved the traffic like many of you. I did not know, Marcus Coleman, how bad the traffic in Atlanta was until I got 15 messages saying that we're stuck in traffic, but we're coming. And so we did not want to delay anymore. I'm so grateful that you all did not think it robbery to come here and talk about the important issues that are raised in my book, Open Season, the legalized genocide of colored people. I would acknowledge people, but I know if I started doing that, I would leave some people out. So all of you are very dear to me to have this conversation this evening. When I think of why this book is important, B.J. Bernstein, it is because we have to hold a mirror to America's face and let them see the hypocrisy and admit the racism and the discrimination embedded in the legal institutions, but not just the legal institutions, all the institutions of governance in America. And CK, I think about when the publishing company came to me and said, we think you have a story to tell. They were interested in Trayvon and Michael Brown, but I knew that if ever I were to write a book, it would not be about those cases, but it would be an indictment on the entire legal system that are killing our people every day. And so I think about when I was in Ferguson, Missouri, in the aftermath of the killing of Michael Brown. You all remember hands up, don't shoot, because 14 black people said that he had his hands up, and this discriminatory racist system discounted what all 14 of those black people said and took the word of the white police officer who murdered a teenager who was unarmed in broad daylight. And it was in that the young people refused to stay silent. They refused to let them sweep Michael Brown's death under the rug. And specifically, I remember there was this one young man who was out there with the protesters, Michael, and he was fearless. He walked right up to the National Guard who was aiming their assault rifles at him, center mass. And he literally was almost touching his face on the tip of their assault rifle. And he said, "Go ahead and kill me now while all the cameras are out here. Y'all gonna kill us anyway when the cameras go, so kill me now so the world can see how y'all are killing us." And I was just riveted by that. I thought to myself, I said, he is right. It is important that the world see how they're killing us, but not just in these high-profile police shootings, but more poignantly, how they're killing us every day in every city, in every state, across America, in courtrooms every day. Every day. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just go to any courtroom and sit in the back of the courtroom and watch what Chuck D from Public Enemy said. Check out the justice and how they run it. I mean, you see little white kids come into the courtrooms with very similar fact patterns as little black and brown kids, and they get a slap on the wrist, and they get escorted out of the court to live out the fulfillment of their destinies and to have an opportunity to achieve the American dream. But yet, the little black and brown children get taken to the side of the courtroom, they get fingerprinted, they get handcuffed, and they get convicted of a trumped up felony conviction. And I do mean the trumped up felony conviction. And once they have that felony conviction, they have to bear that conviction like a cross on their backs for the rest of their entire lives. And when you have a felony conviction, you know, they say all those things that everybody know, that you can't vote, you can't serve on jury duty, and you can't serve in the military. Well, that's just the very tip of the iceberg of what it means when you have a felony conviction and how your life has changed forever. I mean, it's almost as if you are a permanent underclass citizen from that point on, because once you have that felony conviction, everything you could legitimately do to try to make a living, they start denying it from you. Because if you want to be a teacher, if you're a felony convicted person, you can't get a certification. If you want to be a nurse, you can't get a certification. If you want to be a real estate agent, you can't get a certification to sell real estate. If you want to be a brick mason, you can't get certified to be a construction manager. If you are a beautician, sisters, you can't get certification in many states to even be a beautician. I mean, everything you try to do, and in fact, Marcus Coleman, as we recently learned in Atlanta, CK, I didn't know this. If you have a felony conviction, if you got a felony conviction and you're an exotic dancer, they say you can't even get certified to perform in adult clubs. I mean, everything how you can try to legally make a living to keep a roof over your family's head and keep food on the table and lights on, they start taking it away from you. If you're trying to go to college and you're a convicted felon, you can't get a federal Pell Grant. And in many times you can't get a federal student loan once you are a convicted felon. And in fact, in many states, if you are a convicted felon and you have served time in prison, you can't even get life insurance. It's like you're the walking dead. They just have not given you the death certificate. But every opportunity I get, I always try to tell people that we cannot let this racist criminal justice system define our young people. We always have to keep telling them we still believe in you. You still have redeeming qualities. You still one of the best assets in our family. You know, you still can provide hope for our community that God has for you. Don't give up on yourself just because these racist people are trying to marginalize you and disenfranchise you and dehumanize you. We still believe that you your mama best. We still believe in you. And we got to be so resolute about that, because do you all know in states like Florida and Tennessee, 1 in every 5 black men are a convicted felon. And many of the other states have similar statistics. The experts opine, CK, if this trend continues, in the next 25 years, it will be 1 in every 3 black men are convicted felons. So to make it very real for you and graphic, if you have a son and you have a nephew and then you have a little male cousin, one of them, if the statistics bear out, are going to be a convicted felon, and they're going to be marginalized over and over again for the rest of their lives. And so that's the reality that we're fighting. It's like they're killing us softly every day in court. And that's why I don't shy away from the title, Legalized, Genocide of Colored People. In many ways, this book is an extension of what great black leaders in 1951 did, led by the likes of the great Paul Robeson, who at the time was the most famous African American in the world, along with W.B. Du Bois. He, with these other leaders, they went to the United Nations Convention in Paris, France, in the aftermath of World War II, where you had all these war-torn countries filing their petitions for genocide over the atrocities that had been brought upon them during war. And the black leaders filed their petition. We charge genocide against the government for the killing of Negro people in America. And they based this on the daily killings, lynchings, and raping of black people in the 1940s, where nobody was ever held accountable, where the courts that were supposed to protect them kept legalizing it, kept coming up with intellectual justifications of discrimination over and over again. So these brothers said, look at your definition, United Nations, of genocide, which is an act or acts that are intended to destroy in whole or in part a group based on national, ethnic, racial, or religious identities. And they said, tell us how this doesn't apply to black people in America. And they concluded their petition with saying that either the United States government is complicit with or responsible for creating a genocidal situation for Negro people in America. And now almost 70 years later, I scratch my head, and as we lay out in open season over and over again, the government, the courts, the lawmakers, the executive branches, they are complicit when you put these statistics up there in their face, like black men make up 7% of the population in America, but yet we make up almost 50% of the population on death row. And how can that be? It's only one or two things. Either you black men are some terrible, evil, criminal-minded thuggish, or two, this criminal justice system is a racist, discriminatory system that targets you over and over again. And so we have to make the case. And the last 2 points I will make before CK begins the Q&A, and then we'll give you an opportunity to answer a few questions, is the fact that we wrote this book as a mirror for all Americans, black, white, brown, red, to confront our biases so we can make America better, so we can live up to these high ideals and morals that are written in the Constitution, and that we can hopefully make America, who are very fond of reciting the preamble to the Declaration of Independence, act like they really believe the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. You know, the part that says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equally, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that amongst them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, America, that means black and brown people too.
It means women too.
Oh yes, it means women, it means members of the LGBT, and that's a good point, because many people think when they see legalized genocide of colored people, they only stop it at skin color. But as we point out in the book, you can be colored by many other experiences in life. You can be colored by your sexual preference, by your gender, by your economic status. And so we talk about how disenfranchised people are being killed by the law, not just by the bullets. And so that's an important point. As you read this, hopefully it becomes a conversation piece that you will go out and share with others, so then we can start formulating a solution. But first, America has to acknowledge that there is a problem. And until that point, there's no way we could ever get to a solution. And on that point, we wrote this book and it took about 3 years of my life that I didn't have time, but I knew it was just as important as representing the Trayvon Martins, the Tamir Rices, the Terrence Crutchers, the Stephon Clarks of the world, because people had to have empirical evidence of the discrimination that is embedded in the law. But I really want the young people of color to understand, you know, Ben Franklin said that democracy is like two wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for lunch. You know, you don't have to be a genius to know how that vote is going to go. But he said liberty is making sure that the lamb is well armed to protest that vote. And so with this book, I endeavor to make sure young lambs in communities of color are well armed to protest the school to prison pipeline, that they're well armed to protest racist Jim Crow laws like Stand Your Ground, that they're well armed to protest voter suppression, that they're well armed to protest environmental racism that would find young children living in South Central Los Angeles have only a third of the lung capacity as children living in Santa Monica, California, because we have legalized that they can have toxic, polluting chemical plants within breathing space of where our children go play and go to school. Make sure that they are well armed to protest the prison industrial complex, that when you think about when people go to jail and prison, they oftentimes are worried about losing their constitutional rights. But CK, when minorities, especially women of color, go to prison, they not only have to worry about losing their constitutional rights, as we document in the book, they also, Eddie, have to worry about losing their reproductive rights. Because as late as 2014, in the state of California, there was documentation of Black and Hispanic women being coerced into forced sterilizations. I mean, didn't know that they had lost their ability to procreate. And this was all legal. And as late as 2017, in Tennessee, not just a judge, but judges were issuing sentences to Black men and saying in open court, we will reduce your 12-year sentence by 10 years if you just agree to be sterilized. And so we're talking about genocide figuratively and literally. And the last thing I'll do before I take my seat, and you can get your cameras ready, because this is quite moving. And I'm very honored that he's here tonight and he's agreed to come up. But, you know, you think about that situation with Folsom John and Dallas, where I worked with some great Texas lawyers, Lee Merritt and Darrell Washington, and you know, we saw that historic conviction where the white policewoman, for the first time in American history, had been convicted of murder for killing a Black man in the United States. You know, Bolton was in his own apartment, eating ice cream, minding his business, watching the football game. She allegedly came into the wrong apartment and killed him, and then she claimed self-defense. I know it's crazy to me too. I've been a lawyer for 25 years. But when she was convicted, she was sentenced to 10 years, and we certainly don't think the punishment fits the crime. That's right. And you think about all the compassion and the sympathy that she got. But yet, I represent dozens of black men in America who have been wrongfully convicted, spent decades in prison, and they don't get no hugs, no compassion, no sympathy, many times no compensation. They don't get anything at all. And when you think about the hypocrisy in America, you think about those black men on death row, and you really have to understand that the easiest way to get on death row in America is to be a person of color and to kill a white person. But when you juxtapose that, and it's a white person that kills a person of color, it's not even guaranteed because of these racist stand your ground laws that they would even be arrested. I mean, they just kill us and spend the night sleeping in their own bed. That's right. And so you have to look at this hypocrisy. And we talk about it and we put it on paper, but it's nothing like saying the real hypocrisy in America. Tonight, I have a young man who I am so honored to represent. His name is Darrell Hunter. When he was 15 years old, he and his brother and his godbrother were wrongfully accused and arrested for a murder they did not commit. They had 10 witnesses. All of those witnesses have recanted their testimony, saying that they were forced by one particular detective as the ring leader to put these boys, take away their lives. And I don't want to get too emotional because he's here, but can you imagine being 15 years old, put into an adult prison for a crime you didn't commit? And the fact that when his mother wrote us the letter through Reverend Toon and them talking about she did not want to leave this earth because she was sick without seeing her boys free. I mean, this is real stuff, y'all. I mean, very real. And no judge hugged them. No judge rubbed their head. Nobody had any sympathy or compassion about them, for them. But I hope tonight you would join me in extending compassion and consideration and sympathy as I introduce you to Mr. Darrell Hunter and his girlfriend Shana, who will make a few remarks because I want you all to know that they are killing our people mentally and physically. And if this isn't a prima facie case of how they kill us mentally, can you imagine his mother's anguish for 25 years, knowing not one of her sons, but both of her sons were sitting in prison for a murder they did not commit. So if you all would join me in welcoming Darrell Hunter and Shana to the stage. And he's only been out for a little over 3 months now, and we're still working, BJ, to get him actual innocence. And he's not supposed to speak, he's a little nervous, so y'all please bear with him. He is a living incarnation of what we are trying to document in this book, Open Season, Mr. Darrell Hunter.
How y'all doing out there? Good to be out. You know, I'm happy that everybody, you know, came to my aid, came to 3 our aids. You know, there's a lot of black people in there, not just black, but mostly our kind. You know, don't get justice, you know, the freedom, and we just need everybody in society to look at this. It's a real problem. You know, I was taken away at the age of 15, deprived of a lot of things, you know, but I put all that behind me now. But when I got out, there was a lot of guys in there asking me, you know, don't forget me. You know what I'm saying? So I go to sleep at night with that on my mind, and I told them once I got out, I was going to do that. And that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing right now. You know, I got a legal situation going on, but, you know,
we
they
gonna get justice for the legal situation. He will get adequate penalty.
you know, they call me, they email me, you know, and I feel their pain. You know, my mom, my parents, you know, they still alive, but I lost my uncle like 2 months before I got out. He was with me all the way. My whole family was there for me. But
They never gave up on
they never gave up on me, you know. My nieces, my sisters, my brothers, all of them, my uncles, the whole family. But I want everybody, you know, that's in here to share this thing, you know, because this is real, real serious, you know. I was just taken out society, just robbed, stolen, thrown into jail, and all I can do is just, you know, it depressed me for a little while, but, you know, I broke out of depression. My brother, he sat there and wrote letters every day. I was locked up with my brother, you know. That did something for me because I had somebody there that I knew, that was my brother. And he sat at the table, I watched him. Sometimes I wanted to give up, but I said, I haven't even lived life yet. I can't kill myself. I haven't lived life. So that's what we did. We wrote letters, and, you know, shout out to Reverend Toom.
Yeah.
Shout out to Reverend Toom for, you know, doing what he, you know, putting us together. But it's serious in there, you know. We don't get no type of nothing.
Yeah, just my bad is what they told them. My bad.
Once
After
we
25 years.
Once we brought the truth to the light and put it on the press, they let us out. You know, they couldn't turn a blind eye to it. You know, but it's something serious, you know. You know, guys still, you know, in prison, they want to get out. The ones that did wrong, they want to get out and do right. And it's just a roadblock for us.
And the one thing I would say, all 10 witnesses, 9 of the 10 recanted. There's one witness that did not recant, and he's the undercover informant that was working for the police. He is the only one who has told 4 different stories now. And they are trying to say that because there's still an actual eyewitness that say they killed this individual, even though they have several alibis. The courts have said that unless the district attorney is going to schedule the hearings and so forth, they're going to try to continue to rob them of their vindication. So we as a community have to understand that it is the legalized genocide of colored people that we're fighting. And I want you all to please continue to pray for Darrell as he starts his journey back to being fully reinstated into society. Obviously, it's still on his record, so when he goes to get a job, he still is shown as a convicted felon murderer. And it's just real, and I'm so proud of him that he is trying not to give way to anger and hatred, that he said that for 25 years, I dealt with hatred. I can't deal with that no more. I got to try to deal with living my life. And so, Darrell, we're going to stand with you, brother. Thank you, Darrell. And this hashtag, the Virginia 3, 15, 19, and 21, all taken away for 25 years. Do you want to say anything, Shane? She was like a lawyer for them when I got involved. All these years.
I just want to let people know how important family is, and you know, he had his mom, his dad, and his uncle. They were his biggest supporters, and they were instrumental in having the rest of the family support. But while you're in prison, they make it very hard for visitation. He didn't go to a juvenile facility. He went to an adult prison. His parents would pick me up on the weekend when I was 15 to take me to adult prison, and I was pat down and everything. But through all of that, family support from our community is very important. It's very important to have these politicians make them understand how serious this is on a local level, not just on a national level, of how serious it is when you're locking away children and you are not doing your due diligence to make sure that there are no discrepancies in the cases. You shouldn't be using confidential informants that have been caught in several lies. You know, this didn't just tear apart Daryl's life, but it tore apart his family's life. I watched his family spend thousands upon thousands of dollars over 25 years to try to save not one child, but 2 children and a godchild. So it is genocide what they're doing to us, and it's legalized, and it won't stop until we all begin to participate on a collective level and get involved in the communities on a small level so that this doesn't happen. We have to hold the politicians and everyone accountable for this.
I told you she was a co-counselor. She's a lawyer. Thank you all so much. CK asked a few questions. I'll try to keep my answers brief so we can get to the book signing. And again, thank you so much. CK is the president-elect of the National Bar Association, Atlanta's own.
Good evening, everyone. I have just got to say a word about Ben Crump because you all know who he is. But the reason why he is so significant is because he really does care. Every single day of his life, he puts his life on the line for the voiceless. And he does it, he is unstoppable, and he is a man who dared. And Ben, for every single thing that you do, for the least of these, for everybody, for Daryl, his family, for Joe Beasley, our own Joe Beasley here. Yeah. We know what happened to Joe Beasley. How can you have an icon in the world, Joe Beasley, be held at gunpoint? How does that work?
Civil rights icon.
Our civil rights icon here in our community. But Ben, I just want to say thank you for all that you do for everybody. For the National Bar Association past president, for the least of these, for every black and brown man, for every black and brown child, for every black and brown woman, for every black and brown girl. Daryl Hunter is my son, Ozzie Hoffler, is my son, AJ Hoffler, is your daughter. So when we see this, we can't say, oh, but that's just because, no. It could be any of our children. Please hear me.
Any of our children.
Any of our children. This is not a social economic issue. As Ben Crump says, it's open season, legalized genocide of colored people. It doesn't say legalized genocide of colored people who ain't got nothing.
Exactly. Preach.
So I say to Reverend Dr. Crump, open season, why open season?
And you already know, I'll just briefly say, CK, just think about the last 12 months. How many hashtags have we come to learn, Mr. Beasley? Names of people in their own apartments. Atiana Jefferson, the last one, in her own apartment. We got one with my investigator, Arthur Reed, where a man went into a grocery store outside of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and he stole a chicken out the grocery store, and you presume that people who stealing food, they're doing it because they're hungry or they're trying to feed their family, and the brother was running away, and for reasons inexplicable, they shot him in the back and killed him. And so it is just open season killings, and so the book is titled that to try to prevent these future hashtags, because it was Michael Brown, last time it was Terrence Crutcher, but if we don't do something about it, it'll come to your doorstep. And can you just imagine somebody you love becoming a hashtag? Let that sink in, and that's why we wrote the book.
And that is, that's an extraordinary tribute to all that you do. Open season. And when we talk about legalized genocide, I know for you as a lawyer, as an extraordinary lawyer, as an extraordinary injury lawyer, as an extraordinary civil rights lawyer, I know that sometimes you receive death threats, right?
You do. It's part of the mission.
And can you share, because I think a lot of times people don't know the sacrifice, the personal sacrifice that you make for you and your family because of this fight, because you refuse to be denied, and because you dare to represent the least of these and the voiceless. Can you share with the audience what it's like for you?
Certainly. You know, it was so deep. I was on, I had my Hollywood cameo on the...
It was a great cameo. Wasn't that a great cameo?
The movie Marshall, about my personal hero, Thurgood Marshall. And I remember the actors, Chadwick and the others, asked me about that. What do you do when you get death threats? Because he was trying to get the character right. And I remember saying to him, you know, you don't take it lightly. You acknowledge it. You call the FBI and you try to have it reported and documented. And then you move forward. You move forward because you cannot let them see that they can deter you from keeping your eyes on the prize. And I think about my hero, Thurgood Marshall. You know, when he would go to a town, CK, and you know, you're a civil rights lawyer too, Thurgood, all the black people would get really excited. Thurgood is coming. Thurgood is coming. And all the black people would know he's coming, but also all the white supremacists and all the KKK members would know he's coming too, and they'll be waiting for him. But Thurgood went anyway. And many times he came within inches of his life, but yet he kept going back. Harriet Tubman kept going back. Ida B. Wells kept going back. So shame on us if we don't go back and try to fight for our people.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And if they kill us, in the book, on page 182, the Black Pledge of Allegiance, something that was very personal with me when my little nephew was almost caught up in the trap, the criminal justice system at 13 for, I think, quite frankly, just being a young black man, and they want to get younger, stronger slaves. I came up with that Pledge of Allegiance that we would say every day as I sent my 3 young boys who were under my tutelage out into the world, because I wanted them to understand they could be like Daryl Hunter. Daryl was just playing, hanging out with his brother and his god brother. They didn't know nothing about somebody being killed. The police went and found 3 Negroes to put it on. And so I say that every time we send our children out in the world, we got to have their mind right to know that no matter what may come, we will overcome.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm just going to ask you a couple more questions because we know the audience has questions too. When we talk about the lessons that you've learned, and what you want young black boys and black girls to remember, and their parents who might be in the audience, what would you say to them?
You know, I would say that Black Pledge of Allegiance, I'll just say the first stanza, because they have to understand it. Today is another day in the struggle for the liberation of black people. This liberation demands revolution. This revolution lives within me. For I am the hope of the slave. I am the antagonist of the white supremacy conclave. I am the very definition of ebony, a hard, heavy, black, durable, strong wood that safeguards everything in my neighborhood. And you know, I would say to them, in that mindset, it has to be us collectively. They can never go think it's just about me, because the only way we will come up is if we make sure our children are more intelligent than those who would seek to oppress them. And we have to remind them that over and over again, it's about intellect, because guns and violence will never, we can't win that battle. We don't have as many guns as they have, but intelligence, diplomacy, that's how you win this battle. And our children, if given the right nurturing and tutelage, I think about what my mother did for us. We grew up in the projects, 3 boys, and she raised us on her own. She would always tell me, in between her working these 2 jobs, that life ain't fair, baby. Life is hard. You make it fair by what you bring to the table. And if you don't bring nothing to the table, don't expect nobody to let you sit down at the table. And I remember all the time I was at college at Florida State, I kept thinking that in my psyche, that I want to bring something to the table. I want to bring something to the table. And so when I graduated Sandman, the first thing I did was told my mother, I'm bringing something to the table.
Well, I will end with the final. We need to clap for that because that is because there's a lot to be said for bringing something to the table, and every generation has a hero. You talked about Thurgood Marshall. We talk about Harriet Tubman. We talk about Maxine Waters.
Yeah.
We talk about some of the great women of color who have changed the fabric of this country. We talk about Dr. King.
Yes, ma'am.
We're here on Auburn Avenue.
Yes, ma'am.
We talked about Reverend Jesse Jackson. We talk about Ambassador Young and Joe Beasley. And I would dare say, ladies and gentlemen, that right now, right here, today, you're in the present of that living legend in Ben Crump. There is no other Ben Crump.
You're very kind, CK.
And it's the truth.
Yeah.
And so we thank you. So I'm going to open up questions to the audience. Does anyone have any questions?
We'll probably take 3 and
3 questions.
3, and so we can get to the signing.
We have time for, is that on?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have time for about 3
There's a-
questions. And
there's a young lady
you
one.
can just come right up to either mic here.
And again, give CK Hoffler a round of applause. She is one of the greatest trial lawyers in America. She's a bad woman in a courtroom.
Hi, I missed some of the beginning of what you were talking about, but I know you're giving a lot of statistics about incarceration rates for Black men, and I wondered if you also include information about Black women, because, can I finish? Because I feel like sometimes the conversation is very one-sided, like Black cis and trans women are not being jailed, imprisoned, and abused, and so I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
Certainly. When you read the book, it is a conversation piece. We talk about the fact that women of color is the quickest growing percentage of people being incarcerated in America today. We also talk about, and we're working with the National Black Justice Coalition, which is one of the leading organs for Black LGBTQ community, and we talk about in there how a transgender woman was assaulted by a young white supremacist and his girlfriend and a couple other guys, and he tried to kill her, and when she defended herself, she ended up killing him, and it was clear as day. All the evidence was there, but when she said stand your ground, it didn't work for her. And then we document also when the courts, when she tried to get put into a prison that would show respect for her sexual preference, they said no, and they put her in the male population prison where she was raped repeatedly and almost murdered. And so we talk about how the law is beneficial to many people, but very seldom when it comes to people of color, whether you're colored by sexual preference, whether you're covered by gender or poverty. Oftentimes you get the most of injustice and the least of justice. And so we talk about that a lot. It is not lost on this book, because if we're making the case saying legalized genocide, it has to be across the board.
Hi, first, before I ask the question, I would like to appreciate my dad. I'm very stubborn, but Ernest Cooper III, he's kept me at my place.
Absolutely. Mr. Cooper?
But I was wondering, as a 14-year-old growing up in Atlanta, what would you tell me to do?
You know, one of the things I said earlier is, he said, as a 14-year-old growing up in Atlanta, what would be the things I would encourage him to do? And one of the things I would say is intellect. We got to make sure that you all are able to be more intelligent than those who would seek to oppress you. You see, I don't think it's an accident that they grabbed Daryl Hunter or any, in Florida, we talk about how they're direct filing 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds as adults because they want younger, stronger slaves. You know, slavery by any other name is just the same, and I think that's what prison has become. And so one of the things you have to do every chance you get is stay trying to build the most important muscle in your body, and that's the one in your head. You got to over and over again be twice as good as those who would seek to oppress you, because there's no denying excellence. You know, people will always come up with excuses and reasons why they couldn't accomplish something. There is no denying excellence. And when I look at you, what I see is black excellence from head to toe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can I just add one thing? Can I just add one thing? For this young man who's 14.
You got 2 boys.
I got 2 boys, 15 and soon to be 17. Make sure you have a lifeline, or 2. Your dad is a lifeline. And if you get stopped by the police, just remember, because you know when you're smart and educated, you start thinking some stuff. You have to live to be helped. So it's not the time when you get stopped by the police to demonstrate that you're smarter than someone, even though you know you are, because you've got to live. So have those lifelines so you can call Ben Crump. Seriously. So just remember that the rules that your father, I know, has told you. Don't get caught up in that moment where you're going to be, you want to demonstrate that you're going to be that person who makes a difference at that moment when you have law enforcement with guns. Just live. You just need to live so that after you can get help through those lifelines.
Amen. Thank you, CK.
Hello.
Hey,
Hi, Mr. Crump.
Tuesday.
Hi, Ben. Okay,
My classmate
so,
from Florida
yes,
State.
love him. But I just wanted to say thank you because you're creating a dialogue in the communities. And even come here tonight, you know, you and I have talked about how I have to tell people what your actual role is. You're not a prosecutor. You're not a defense attorney. You're a civil attorney helping the families. And so I invited, I'm going to say about 4 people. And they said, oh, he never wins a case. I said, see, that's the ignorance, because he does not try the defendants. He helps the victims. How can I, in your opinion, help you, or how can you help me spread the word that that's your role, not, you know, to make people pay for the crime, but to give the victims a voice?
You know, and I'll let CK speak to this, but there are always going to be ignorant people, and there's nothing you can do. I mean, I don't even worry about that so much, because as Arthur and Marcus and everybody work, our phone's constantly ringing. It ain't stopping our business at all. And as I honestly believe this here, all our clients, we've never lost a civil rights case ever. I mean, every one of them, we have won. And, you know, people who need to go back to high school to study civics, you know, we can't do anything about that. They're going to be ignorant because they want to be ignorant. Right. They want to be haters. They're jealous people, and you can't control that. You know, it's like Malcolm X said that, you know, the masses will have us rooting for the people who are killing them and booing the people who are trying to save them. And you just can't even worry about that. And the last thing I would say is this, Tuesday. When I think about my hero, Justice Thurgood Marshall, I mean, you read about his life, him and Dr. King, some of the people who hated them most, Marcus, some of the people who talked about them most were black people. I mean, Thurgood Marshall, they said the same thing that you said these 4 young people, who I don't think understand high school civics, are saying is what they said about Thurgood Marshall. I mean, they said, we can't win with Marshall, we just need to get rid of him. You know, the NAACP, they lose all the time and so forth. But what they don't understand is it's set up for us not to get justice in this criminal justice system. And it's amazing that in the last 30 years, we've been able to make them pay millions upon millions of dollars to try to change the system. As Johnny Cochran once told me, and I believed it too, if we can get them to pay $1 million every time they shoot a black man in the back, there'll be less black men being killed. And I'm not so sure we were right about that, because we keep getting money, but yet they keep killing us. And it would be so easy, Tuesday, and all my lawyer friends tell me this, Crump, why do you care? Why are you even talking about putting the police in jail? Why don't you just go take the money? I mean, you won, take the money and go home. And I say, because if I do that, then I've lost, because I've sold out for $1, and it's not about the money, it's about stopping them from killing our people. So thank you for the friendship, and thank you, Tuesday.
I would just add one more thing, just because I've known Ben Crump for a long time, and I practiced in Florida with Willie Gary before coming here. He does win every case, even in the civil arena. Not, when I say civil arena, not civil rights, I mean injury cases, I mean other cases, premises liability cases. So he is an extraordinarily effective and dynamic trial lawyer on all the cases that he takes on, but he's making his mark in the world, not in America, not in Georgia, not in Florida, not in St. Louis, in the world, as he traveled to Switzerland to talk to the United Nations about what he's doing in the world, because he dares to care. Yes. So I just wanted to add that.
No, thank you, CK. And all seriousness, Tuesday, who the Negroes should be mad at are the prosecutors and the state attorneys. But they don't say anything about them. They come out the few civil rights lawyers who are out here trying to stand up for our people and beat them down, when the white prosecutors who putting their children in jail, letting the police officers get murdered, they let them get elected over and over and over again. And so I take it, what I want to do is try to educate them. I thank God for my mental and temperament. I don't get upset at that, because I'm a little boy from the projects who God has blessed me to be doing what I'm passionate about. They say I'm real rich. You know, I have, my mother got a house. She's no longer living in the project. So I'm okay. If God says I got to every now and then listen to some ignorant Negroes, I'll take that deal.
He's a bad brother, that's all I can say. So I think we're going to close this section of the program, and let's give Ben Crump a round of applause.
And another one for CK as well. Thank you all so much. Ben Crump has agreed to sign copies of the book. They're available for purchase in the hall. We're gonna let him go out without more questions, so try to.
And I want to thank Charis Books here in Atlanta, the leading feminist bookstore, the oldest feminist bookstore in Atlanta, Georgia.
In the South.
In the South. And I want to say this in conclusion, because we talked about Thurgood Marshall a lot. Justice Marshall said that the basis of the American Constitution is simply this: that a black baby born to a black mother, the most uneducated black mother, the most impoverished black mother, the most inarticulate black mother has the same exact rights as a white baby born to a white mother, the most educated white mother, the most articulate white mother, the most affluent white mother, just by virtue of that baby drawing its first breath as an American. Now, Justice Marshall said, I know that's not the case in America today, but I challenge anybody to say that's not a goal worth fighting for. I challenge anybody to say that's not what makes America the great beacon of hope and justice for all the world to marvel. So when we stand up for the Trayvon Martins of the world, but more importantly, when we stand up for the unknown Trayvon Martins of the world, when we stand up for who my grandmother called the least of these, what we are doing is helping America live up to its creed. What we're doing is helping America be the great beacon of hope and justice for all the world to marvel. But most importantly, what we are doing is helping America be America for all Americans. Thank you, and God bless you.